Hello everybody, we just finished watching the 5th episode of Bleach's 1000-year Blood War arc, titled Wrath as a Lightning, and like normal, I want to talk about it, so hey, guess what? That's what we're going to do. Now a few starting notes before I get started talking about the episode like normal. I was a little stuffy here, so if I sound off, that is why. My nose is still trying to get good again. Right, so, and the rest of the housekeeping stuff, this episode is, of course, the fifth episode of the 1000-year Blood War arc and the 371st episode of the series as a whole. Title is, of course, Wrath as a Lightning, and this episode covers another 5 chapters, from chapters 500 to the end of 505. So, this has been about, if I'm not mistaken, 2 episodes in a row now where it has totaled a exact 5 chapters every time, and it has gotten on the schedule of like a 10 number to 5 and then a 6 to the end of the 9, right? So pretty much very simple, and if it runs this 5 chapters a week, we should be getting some expanded content here. If we're supposed to be getting 50-something episodes, when if we're doing it like this 5, we're only getting like 20 per 100, right? So we're going to run out chapters quicker that way. But now to get into the episode at large here, of course, last time we ended off with Ichigo being trapped by the Getsuga, or not Getsuga, being trapped by Ulpi's jail shrift, right? And in this episode, we pretty much just start with everybody in the Soul Society getting an announcement that, hey, Ichigo is going to be arriving soon, right? And we see that almost everybody is like, oh my gosh, this means we've got a chance now, and just really in high spirits, right? Well, this pretty much goes where it flashes around to everybody, until it flashed around to a Cone, who is like, oh no, we can't get Ichigo's signal anymore, right? And he was the one who couldn't get his Bankai taken. He was supposed to be our hope. Where's he going now, right? And at this point, we see some people attacking the Squad 12 barracks, right? The research and development facility, right? And pretty much just a bunch of attacks happen, right? We do get a small deleted scene here that was in the manga that isn't here, but it's not really anything of note to talk about, right? Ichigo's phone isn't connecting him to Akon anymore, but it's connecting him to all over the Soul Society, right? So he literally hears everybody as they're like, Ichigo, we know you will come back. Come on, come back. We know you can help us beat him, right? And at this point, Ichigo's just like, why can't I do anything, right? As he just starts firing off Getsuga Tenshos and more Getsuga Tenshos, right? At this point, we have the opening play. Of course, like normal, the opening is Scar by Tatsuya Kitani, right? Same opening. It hasn't changed. My opinion on it hasn't changed. It's okay. It's not good. It's not terrible. It's an opening that exists, right? It is what it is. At this point, we see that Ulpi is talking about, oh, look at that. Ichigo's trying so hard up there. Too bad he won't go anywhere. And as Urahara is just like, oh no, what are we going to do? As, who's his face? Ulpi starts to say, this is just my power, the jail. As he just gets cut straight in half, right? With like a red attack that sort of fires off at him. And it just cleaves him right down the side of where he previously got a hole blasted through him, right? And at this point, whoever this is puts up a sword to Urahara's neck, and Urahara is just like, shit, right? Like, he's like, this isn't good, right? At this point, we cut back over to the Soul Society, where Asnot is fighting with Renji and Byakuya. Asnot gets a very clean hit on Byakuya, pretty much making him shed a lot of blood, right? At this point, Byakuya's like, hey, Renji, no matter what happens to me, I need you to save your Bankai. Yours may be the only one capable of defeating our foes in front of us, right? And at this point, Asnot talks, right? Asnot starts to give a speech about fear, right? As we learn that is his shrift is F the fear, right? And Asnote pretty much gives a massive monologue, pretty much going about what this fear means and how fear affects people, right? It's a speech, right? If you want to watch any of this happen, just go watch the episode, right? I am not going to sit here and explain it perfectly, and we get an explanation on what fear is, right? At this point, pretty much Byakuya is just like, but I have no fear, right? We all have fear when fighting, and my fear will be enough to beat you, right? And at this point, Asnote just stabs Byakuya through, right? And pretty much Asnote goes on this monologue about what fear is, and he pretty much uses this description of flies crawling up into Byakuya, and like it's very weird, and like how these flies imbue fear, right? And at this point, Asnote uses Simbo and Zakura Kageyoshi to harm Byakuya even more. He's using Byakuya's own Bankai against him, right? And at this point, there's the massive massacre of like just Byakuya's getting destroyed by Asnote, right? Renji tries to fight back, right? We cut over to Rukia, who's obviously telling that something is really wrong with all of this, right? We see a Stern Ritter there who harms Rukia because Rukia isn't paying attention to her, right? And at this point, like, Renji just keeps trying to fight for Byakuya's sake. Byakuya tries to fight back, but he just gets getting hit again by his Bankai, right? And at this point, Byakuya is just totally defeated. He's pushed back to the wall, right? And at this point, Renji's like, I don't care. And as he starts to say Bankai, the mask guy from earlier who got knocked down comes in and just shoves Renji out of the way, right? At this time, Byakuya's like, oh no, I'm sorry everybody, as his blade just snaps. Because, well, how else are we going to build good dramatic tension in a series like this without people's blades cracking? But yeah, Byakuya isn't really doing too good, and knowing what happens in the manga, is Byakuya dead or is he alive? Who would know, right? The author totally didn't get sent death threats about this back in the day. I mean, definitely he never did, right? Sorry, Kubo. Pretty much at this point we get the episode break. Some of the intro and outro panels explaining some Bleach stuff, right? I didn't really pay attention to what they were this time. At this point, Yuha Bak is talking with Hashwolf, right? As Kenpachi Zaraki walks up, and on his sword and strewn over his shoulder are 3 of the Stern Ritter, right? I did not write down their names because their names are not important, being that they are all dead, right? But we do have their letters and what their shrifts were, as we also sort of get a explanation of what these guys did, and here in a second I'll explain that, right? But one of them was Q to question, R to roar, and Y to yourself, right? And at this point, we pretty much get Kenpachi's idea of what happened, right? The roar dude turns into a big monkey and roars. Kenpachi destroyed him, right? The question dude asks Kenpachi a bunch of questions. Kenpachi rips his throat out. Sorry about that. A little bit of a cough there. Like I said, my throat was a bit clogged up, right? Pretty much the Q guy asks him a bunch of questions. Kenpachi rips his throat out. And finally, we have the Y to yourself dude who literally turns into Kenpachi. Kenpachi just had to be stronger than himself, right? At this point, Kenpachi's like, all right, big bad boss guy, I'll come fight you, right? As Yuha Bak is just like, oh no, we'll be fine, we'll fight him, right? At this point, cut back over to Ichigo. Ichigo is still using his Getsuga trying to get out, right? Pretty much, we cut over to Squad 9 at this point, who we have another Stern Ritter there, right? His letter is O, and we learned that his shrift is the Overkill, right? As we also learned his name, Driscoll Bursey, right? At this point, we learn what OD Overkill does as Driscoll gives an explanation. Pretty much how it works is that the more people the guy with the overkill kills, the more he can overkill more people, right? It's fine. It's the I mean, it's fine, right? At this point, Yamamoto shows up, right? As we understand that this is the man who killed Sasekibe, right? And at this point, like I said, Yamamoto shows up, and Yamamoto's like, why are you attacking this? Why are you attacking us, right? As Driscoll pulls out his little sphere thing and uses Chojiro's Bankai, Koko Gonoru Riku, right? Pretty much it's in our Bankai that controls the weather. It summons lightning on the people, right? And at this point, it just envelops Yamamoto and just zaps him and just is relentless. It won't let up, right? At this point, we get some backstory with Sasekibe and Yamamoto, right? Sort of giving more into who Sasekibe was. Back once again, like I said, backstory time, right? Pretty much Chojiro, whenever he was younger, was always bothering Yamamoto, right? Pretty much, there's a bunch of stuff that goes in here, but I'm not really going to get into it. Pretty much, Chojiro's learned Bankai. Yamamoto wants him to show him, right? And Chojiro uses his Bankai in a really cool way, right? And eventually puts a scar on Yamamoto's forehead, right? Eventually, Yamamoto takes the name Genryusai Yamamoto, right? And at this point, Yamamoto's like, it was a beautiful Bankai, right? And says to Driscoll, who is, of course, taking over Chojiro's Bankai, is like, and I am ashamed because it was definitely not this week, as he just goes up and just kills Driscoll. And all right, that's one more Sterner down. I'm pretty sure it's 3 in one episode. No, it's 4 in one episode. Oh boy, right? At this point, Shuhei, who was getting destroyed by Driscoll earlier, Yamamoto is coming. He's like, it is fine. I will personally take them down all myself. As he makes a declaration to kill everybody, and he goes to pretty much murder Yuha, right? At this point, pretty much all of the people in the 13 Court Guard squads is like, wow, we've never seen him get this angry, right? But I feel like he'll yell at us if we don't give it our all, so we got to give it our all. So they all try to go and give their all against their opponents, right? And at this point, we get the ending. Of course, it's Salahate by Serian. It's the ending. I hope next core's got better intros and endings. What can I say, right? At this point, we get a few after credit scenes, pretty much. Something that we have not been getting with this series so far. It's pretty much been ending to, okay, here we have the poem for the end of the episode and the next episode title, right? And at this point, there is this idea of a special threat, and Kenpachi is one of them. Kenpachi is being destroyed by Yuha, and Yamamoto shows up, and Yuha and Yamamoto are getting ready to face off. At this point, we get our episode title for next time, which is The Fire. And that's really all that happens in this episode. As far as important stuff that goes on, pretty much all of the Yamamoto and Sasekibe backstory this episode is really titled after. I think it's very good. It gives a lot of detail into these characters and helps us understand sort of why Sasekibe was important in a way, when throughout the rest of the series, I mean, I don't even know if you could name 14 things he did, right? The entire thing that Ichigo's stuck in jail is, I don't know, he's stuck in the jail, right? Who killed Opie? Oh no, who was it? Byakuya's whole thing with Asano, I think, is really much more played up in the manga. Of course, I know how this works, so it's not as effective on me the first time. But pretty much Byakuya is getting destroyed by Asano, and Renji is just pushed out of the picture here for a little while. like I said, we covered another 5 chapters, so next time will probably be 506 to 510. We get to see more Yamamoto stuff, and knowing what happens next, we do get a bunch of Yamamoto stuff, so I'm glad to see that he's really getting a lot of effort put into him, as his character should be, right? I don't really have a lot to say. I think Chojiro's Bankai is really cool and a really good idea that I'm glad is being used like it is. And I really don't have a whole lot more to say. Again, this was episode 5 of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, Wrath as a Lightning. 371 overall, covered chapters 500 to 505, and next time we'll be back with episode 6 of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, The Fire. I'll see you next time. This is Glowplasma231 out.